Hello, Star Trek fans, and welcome to the Rebinge Deep Space Nine podcast. My name is Kim.
And my name is James.
And my name is Atiba.
And we're watching Star Trek Deep Space Nine from the beginning, one episode at a time. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we are on Season 6, Episode 19, In the Pale Moonlight. This episode aired April 15th, Tax Day, 1998. Before we get started with anything, I would like to welcome Atiba Royster back to the pod.
Good to be back. Thank you, guys.
Just seems like yesterday we saw you.
It really does.
It wasn't that long ago, the last episode we did together.
It was not.
So, Atiba.
Yes.
Is it correct for me to say this is your favorite Deep Space Nine episode?
It is correct to say that.
What makes it so?
But this is definitely the episode that I was the most excited. When I first learned that you were going on this journey, I was like, wow. I really want to be there for In the Pale Moonlight.
Yeah.
I think that this one episode encapsulates everything that makes DS9 unique amongst the Star Trek shows. So,
wow.
Yeah, I can't think of an equivalent of TNG, for example, where at the end the captain's like, yeah, I did that thing. It's okay. I can live with it. So this is unique, I would say.
Yes.
So anything to say about last week's episode, Inquisition?
No, it was perfect.
Was Julian heavy?
You got to see Julian being tortured.
Yeah, and surprisingly, he wasn't as annoying as usual in that episode. But it's okay because he brings it out in this episode. It all comes back together.
Oh, dear.
Well, should we get started on the famous In the Pale Moonlight?
Seeing as I've been waiting 3 years to do this, let's go.
Oh my God. We might have had too much buildup. All right. In the cold open, Sisko is recording a personal log sitting in his quarters, talking directly into the camera. So you immediately know that we're in for something a little bit different. And then he even has to ask the computer what today's date is, and he's surprised, saying, it's only been 2 weeks, and I need to talk about this. I have to justify what happened, what I've done, at least to myself. He wonders if saying it out loud in a log will help it all make sense and help him see where it all went wrong.
Well, we could argue, did actually anything go wrong?
I always like it when a story sort of starts like this, like they're telling you something terrible happened and then we go back to the beginning. I think that's a good storytelling tool.
It's a good device. It is.
Yeah.
Sisko continues his voiceover into a flashback where we see him posting the weekly casualty report in the wardroom. This is something he does every Friday, and it's made him really learn to hate Fridays.
Oh.
Julian, Dax, and Sisko discuss how the Jem'Hadar keep crossing the Romulan border and attacking Federation ships, and surprisingly, the Romulans are turning a blind eye to it, enjoying their treaty of non-aggression and friendship with the Dominion. Dax brings up how the Romulans are happy to sit back and watch their two biggest rivals slug it out in a brutal war while no one threatens their interests. She says, why should they risk their necks? There's no reason for them to get involved in our war. Sisko looks back at the casualty list and in his voiceover says, this is the moment he decided he was going to bring the Romulans into the war. And we cue the theme song.
It is interesting considering how just paranoid about the neutral zone the Romulans are. And you even go near the neutral zone and half a dozen warbirds seem to decloak because they're always just sitting on the other side, just waiting for something to happen.
That's right. That just happened on Prodigy.
Yeah. And they're letting the Jem'Hadar just violate their space.
Well, as far as they're concerned, it's keeping the border clean.
I recently have been re-listening to some history podcasts, and especially about the build-up to World War II. And I got a lot of Russian-German non-aggression pact vibes.
Oh, yeah.
Or German-Soviet, I should say.
Well, after the credits, Dax and Sisko are doing some role-playing, trying to figure out how to get the Romulans interested in the war. They determine that the Romulans won't take action until it's in their best interest. As long as they don't feel threatened, they aren't going to do anything. They need to convince them that after the Federation, the Dominion will move on to the Romulans. And in order to do that, they're going to need proof of Dominion duplicity. And then they kind of smile as they figure out, this is an important element.
Yeah, Dax is doing a great job of playing devil's advocate to Sisko's appeals. Do you think this is the Trill memories again? She's basically using Curzon's skills as a negotiator and as a diplomat to play the role, having some understanding of how the Romulans would behave.
I also don't think that it hurts that you have access to however many lifetimes of experience anyway, just to put yourself in that mindset.
Yeah. The other side of it as well is she could bring up that Curzon's normal plan was just to get them blind drunk, and then they'd agree to anything.
Well, that always worked with the Klingons.
Yeah.
Sisko figures if there really is any evidence of a Dominion plan to attack Romulus, it's likely buried in their headquarters on Cardassia Prime. They agree that's a tough place for them to get any info, but Sisko says there is someone on the station who's a specialist at getting access to places where he's not welcome. And then we cut straight to Sisko talking to Garak.
Before we leave that scene, did you notice Sisko referenced the sacred duty of the Founders to bring order?
To bring order to chaos, yes.
Yeah.
And that they were going to look at the Romulans as just the next chaos they had to clean up.
This is the first time we've seen a religious term used to describe the Founders' worldview or universe view. Do you think that the Founders see it as a religious crusade? Is it a spiritual thing for them or religious thing? Or is it they're just fascist control freaks?
Whenever you see the Founders or the other changelings, they don't act like they're gods. They definitely act like they're superior to everyone else, but they themselves, like, when they're interacting with other non-Dominion races, it's not like they have that expectation that they would, you need to regard me as a deity. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. That's a very interesting question.
The Vorta call them gods.
Yeah.
Right. To the Dominion races, they are gods, but I don't think that that's something. I think that might have been something that was started by the Dominion races and embraced by the Founders, maybe like the emissary relationship, but not like...
Yeah.
But it's not something that I think that they necessarily try to foster, and keep moving forward.
Yeah, we've not heard them say we're gods.
Right. They definitely don't try to make the Cardassians worship them in the same way the Vorta and Jem'Hadar do.
No, right. That's a good point. But they also didn't create them in beakers.
Also true.
So Sisko's referencing the sacred duty is more hyperbole?
I think in his efforts to be convincing to the possible Romulan senator that he's speaking to, he wants to impart to them, like, this is not something that they're just going to give up. They see it as their sacred duty.
Yeah.
Right. Well, now we go to Sisko and Garak is in fine form, telling Sisko that he's flattered Sisko holds such a lofty opinion of him. And he says, your faith in my abilities is most gratifying. And Sisko rolls his eyes, asking to dispense with the usual repartee, which is my favorite line in the entire episode. I just love the way he says that. And by the way, no, we can't dispense with the usual repartee. This is part of Garak's shtick. It's his process.
I'm just a simple tailor.
Well, and he's in his tailor shop here. So Sisko's like, can you do this or not? And Garak tells him getting the plans is a suicide mission, and that is well outside his area of expertise. But Sisko wasn't expecting him to go to Cardassia himself. He figured that he would have some old favors he could call in. And Garak says, perhaps, but he'd have to call in all of his favors. Then he tells Sisko, this is going to be a very messy, very bloody business, and he wonders if Sisko is prepared for that. But Sisko just posted his 14th casualty list. He's already involved in a very messy, very bloody business. He says the only way he can see to end this war is to bring the Romulans in. He very intensely says he's prepared to do whatever it takes, but he can't do it alone. And then he tells Garak he needs his help. Now, are you in or out? Garak pauses for just a moment and then gives one of his little grins and says he's in and shakes Sisko's hand.
Oh, just lovely. That pause, I think, makes it. Garak was in from the start.
Yeah. Took very little convincing.
Yeah, this is all part of his drama.
Just on a quick note, how many favors do you think Garak has? I mean, he's used quite a few up to this point, yeah?
Yeah. I'm surprised he would have any left.
I think this guy has a suitcase of favors he can call in. Bribes.
Maybe.
Blackmail.
I'm guessing it's all blackmail. Yeah, it's not really favors.
If it works for him.
And now in Sisko's voiceover, we hear, my father used to say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And we jump back to Sisko talking directly to the camera. I laid the first stone right there. I'd committed myself. I'd pay any price, go to any lengths, because my cause was righteous. My intentions were good. In the beginning, that seemed like enough. It was very dramatic into this ad break.
I love the visuals here of Sisko sitting in his quarters, narrating this directly at the camera. It gives it such an intense feel.
Yeah, it definitely adds to the drama because just the way he is staring into the camera,
Right.
it adds to the weight of it. Yeah, for sure. Sisko gets a call from Kira in the middle of the night, and he heads to Ops. We learn the Dominion has invaded Beta Z. Somehow, Starfleet didn't even see the attack coming. The 10th Fleet was supposed to be protecting Beta Z, but they were caught out of position on a training exercise. To which I say, the entire fleet was caught on a training exercise. What in the heck? And the planet was lost in 10 hours, and now Vulcan and a bunch of other systems in that area are at risk. And Dax says if we ever needed a new ally, it's right now.
I think I'm going to point out that they're in a war, and they're letting people go to medical conferences on Party World.
Well, yeah.
The worlds they mention as being vulnerable, I think it's important because it's Vulcan, Tellar, and Andor, and those are founder worlds of the Federation.
Ah, now it's becoming serious.
Oh, I see. Yes.
All the peasant worlds, yeah, forget them. But
Very
now
good.
it's getting near home. We're worried. It's near the gated community.
But also, I mean, they didn't say anything about it, but are they worried about telepaths, that they would somehow use the telepaths on Beta Z as a weapon?
Interesting point. They could.
They didn't say it.
I
but-
would wonder, though, whether it's simply strategic.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Yeah.
The equivalent of a salient right in the heart of Federation space.
Mm. So Sisko checks in with Garrick on his progress, and we learn that in a few days, Garrick has made some discreet inquiries with former associates, but within a day of talking to him, they're all dead. And Sisko says, "What?" Which was very funny. I mean, it wasn't meant to be, but it really was.
Yeah.
Garrick is impressed with the efficiency of Dominion security. That's his takeaway from this. Sisko starts to leave pretty dejected, but Garrick isn't ready to give up that easily. He points out the stakes are higher than the lives of a few dead operatives. The fate of the entire quadrant hangs in the balance, and he has another plan, but he doesn't think Sisko's going to like it. Sisko says, "Try me," and Garrick suggests the best way to obtain evidence of a Dominion plot to attack the Romulans is to manufacture it themselves. Back to Sisko recording his log, and he questions whether he should have just put a stop to the whole thing right there. But he didn't, because he knew it made sense.
I have some thoughts here.
Mm-hmm.
Is Garrick interested in this? Because ultimately it's in his interests. If the Dominion wins, he's pretty much dead or on the run. So, as he's very good at avoiding getting killed, he's throwing in with this because it's the only way he gets to survive.
Honestly, I think Garrick's in because he hates... Garrick does not hate Cardassia or Cardassians. He loves his home planet. He just can't...
Yeah.
Is not allowed to be back there. He doesn't want to see it in Dominion hands any more than Sisko does.
Yeah.
So I think that my read was that was his primary motivation.
But also they essentially killed his dad,
They did.
and they took him prisoner as well, so I don't think he was super happy about that.
Right.
Yeah.
Also, another motive for him to want to
Mhm.
get some get back from the Dominion.
But I think if you take all of those things and then you add on top of it that his home is threatened by this,
Yeah.
he's got a lot of motivation.
He is thinking of the big picture.
I think Garrick's always thinking about the big picture. I don't think he's capable of only focusing on the small picture.
He's thinking if they get rid of the Dominion, they can return to that ideal vision of Cardassia that he has.
The natural xenophobia
Yes.
of the Cardassians.
The perfect autocracy.
Yeah. Never-ending sacrifice.
Oh my God. We jump back to the conversation with Garrick, who is talking about a Romulan called Vreenak, a key member of the Romulan Senate. One of the most trusted, influential Romulans around. He's the one who negotiated the non-aggression pact with the Dominion. He's the most pro-Dominion voice in the Senate. Garrick says if we can convince him, the others will follow. He's learned that Vreenak will be attending a secret meeting with Weyoun and could be persuaded to visit the station if asked by Sisko. He declines to reveal where he learned this information.
He did used to work as a gardener on Romulus.
That's right.
Has anybody checked this Romulan senator for being a changeling?
Oh, geez. We don't do that anymore. We stopped worrying about
We're
that.
good with that, James. Come on.
Yeah, we're fine. Garrick proposes that Sisko show Vreenak a holographic recording of a secret Dominion meeting where they're planning the invasion of Romulus. Vreenak will suspect a forgery, but the recording will be on an official Cardassian optolithic data rod, which are very secure and unalterable, except for when you alter them. And when he examines it, it will appear completely genuine, but the recording itself will be a perfect forgery. Sisko needs Starfleet to approve of this plan, but Garak is quite confident they'll be ready to do whatever it takes at this point. And now the next piece of bad news in this plan is the person Garak has found to make the forgery is currently sitting in a Klingon prison awaiting execution. He suggests Sisko contact Gowron and get him pardoned. His name is Grathon Tolar. We cut now to a blue reptilian-looking alien with a ridge running over his head, thanking Sisko for freeing him. This little dude is extremely creepy. He understands the conditions of his parole are that he needs to stay away from the Klingon Empire, and he needs to create a special hologram program for Starfleet. But Sisko says, no, not for Starfleet. This is for me, and it's off the record. And because this show is what it is, the blue dude assumes it's some kind of weird sex thing, which does not endear him to Sisko. It's so on brand for Deep Space Nine.
So this guy has worked with Quark previously then?
Yeah, he must be familiar with Quark.
Well, that's going to explain the next scene a whole lot more.
That's true. Sisko sends him to his quarters to wait for Garak. The mention of Garak's name changes the blue dude's mood immediately as he heads out the door. He goes from being sort of laughy and jokey to, yeah, okay, I'll wait in my quarters.
Yeah.
The makeup on the blue guy, it's pretty impressive, though. I have no idea how he can hear because his ears are completely covered up.
Oh, yeah. You look at that and you think, that guy probably spent 6 hours in makeup for a total of about 5 minutes of screen time.
It seems so suspicious, really, to me that this is a known criminal because he was apparently about to be executed by the Klingons. Why did we not tell Odo to keep him under watch? We didn't do anything. We just were like, oh yeah, sure, wander the promenade. No big deal.
Since when does Odo need to be told about dangerous criminals being on the station?
Excellent point.
He normally just has that information.
Yeah, unless the story needs him not to know, like here.
Right.
Well, now in his voiceover, Sisko says he didn't listen to the voice in the back of his mind, and it didn't take long for him to come face to face with the fact that he'd made a mistake. We see Sisko sitting in his office, and Odo calls to say, someone named Grathon Tolar just tried to kill Quark. Sisko's like, great.
Is this a problem?
Well, yes, unfortunately it is. We're off to Quark's bar, where we learn Tolar got drunk and stabbed Quark. And the surprising part of the story is that Quark got into a tussle with a guy because he was manhandling one of the Dabo women. This is highly unexpected from Quark. Sisko already knows that his hands are dirtier than he wanted. He tells Odo this is an extremely sensitive matter and there can't be any record of this guy on the station. And again, if he wanted no record, he should have been locked in his quarters, not wandering around the promenade. Odo understands the need for special security measures during wartime, but if Quark chooses to press charges, Odo will have to make an arrest. Now, for who does he have to make this arrest? The Bajorans?
Yeah.
Bajoran Station.
Interesting. So Sisko goes to talk to Quark, and the second best line of this episode is when Bashir says Quark will be fine and the bleeding was superficial, and Quark says, superficial? Do you know how much this shirt cost? Classic.
Oh.
And now Sisko is forced to bribe Quark into not pressing charges, which makes Quark very happy, saying he always knew deep down there was a little Ferengi in Sisko, and he quotes the 98th rule of acquisition, every man has his price.
Which, by the way, if that's rule 98, I thought that'd be like rule 3.
Yeah.
You'd think that would be high.
Do we want to talk about how is this surprising? We've seen Sisko do this kind of thing before.
Absolutely.
Twice Sisko has used blackmail.
In the first episode.
Yes, the whole reason Quark is here is because Sisko blackmailed him, threatening Nog with jail time.
Yeah. Well, and Quark isn't even really asking for that much.
This is my next point. Quark has him over a barrel and wants 5 bars of latinum. Okay, Quark, I don't remember which rule it is, but you start at 100 bars and work downwards.
Well, he has no idea just how important this person is. And maybe he didn't want to overplay his hand. I don't know.
You start with the ridiculous and move down to where the sanity is.
Well, my guess is the last thing that he asked for was some crates that were being held by security. Yeah. That may have been the real thing he wanted.
Yeah.
Plus, we're at war, right? He sits down with Quark and says, we're doing very important things here. And you interfering would be seen as giving aid and comfort to an enemy during time of war. How would you like to be in a Federation prison for an extended period of time?
He doesn't want to do that. He doesn't want to do that because then he kind of has to owe something to Quark later. This way, he owes him nothing.
Oh,
He's paid him off.
Threatening Quark? Quark will back down.
He'll back down, but I think it will come up again later.
I would disagree. Last time he threatened Quark, it didn't seem to come back up. Plus, remember, he did a favor for Quark in helping him when he was basically destitute, when they cancelled his Ferengi license.
He helped him keep the bar open, basically.
Quark owes him.
Maybe this is why he's not overreaching. He has a whole different relationship with Starfleet at this point, and Sisko in particular, than he did in Season 1. Season 1, Quark would have asked for something completely different, I think.
Yeah, okay.
Also, the other instances which you mentioned, which were blackmail, they were all about Sisko negotiating to get someone to do something.
Yeah.
For him, this is, I need you to cover my ass. So
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
it's slightly different. And Quark would recognize that immediately.
I was going to suggest maybe he could threaten Nog again and his Starfleet career, but I think Quark would probably like
Quark
that.
doesn't care. Yeah, he wants him out of Starfleet.
Could you kick him out?
Back to the personal log, and Sisko says that was his first moment of real doubt. Now Sisko has his jacket off in the scene and his collar open, and he's pacing around the room. But from here he says he went back to his office and found a new casualty list waiting for him. And in his log, he passionately says, people are dying out there every day. Entire worlds are struggling for freedom. And here I am, worrying about the finer points of morality. I had to keep my eye on the ball, winning the war and stopping the bloodshed. That was my priority.
This is why I love Sisko.
That's the whole sentence?
That's it.
Okay.
Just that. It's
I was waiting for so much more. Okay.
it's so passionately delivered.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Now Garrick and Sisko meet in an elevator, and Sisko asks who's watching the blue guy. Garrick tells him that he's locked him in his quarters with the impression that if he forces the door open, it might explode. And Sisko asks if that's true, to which Garrick replies, it's best not to dwell on such minutia. Classic.
Oh, 100% he's rigged it. There's no way he hasn't.
Yeah. He's got a bomb in his pocket, one or two apparently, because he's blowing stuff up all over the place. It seems Garrick has located a genuine optolythic data rod, but the person with it wants 200 liters of biomimetic gel, a substance strictly regulated by the Federation, because it can be used for some very bad things, of which Bashir lists a bunch of things. At first, Sisko is very upset and he says no, but eventually he realizes it's the only option, and he agrees. But he says 200 liters is ridiculous, and Garrick says the quantity is negotiable, and Sisko appears to go along with it at this point.
You're in this far, and you need the data rod.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly, we all understand that Sisko is fine with biogenic weapons. He's fine.
Exactly.
with
It's already been used.
Oh, brutal.
Yeah, I don't know what he's upset about.
Show of hands. Do we know anyone these weapons are going to be used on?
Oh, man. Now in Sisko's office, we give Dr. Bashir the chance to parade his attitude of superiority around when he objects about the biomimetic gel. He insists that he has to at least know where this gel would be going. But Sisko just has no fucks to give. It's the only way I know how to say it. And he orders him to package up 85 liters immediately.
So, Julian is fine when they're launching biological weapons at human worlds, but this is over the line.
Well, and remember, Julian, too, wanted to sacrifice 30,000 people to save Sisko. I just don't understand why he's always taken the moral high ground. And by the way, he does say, I'm going to note it in my log and file a complaint. It's like, okay, good for you, Captain America. Ay, ay, ay.
Wow. I did not see coming down on Bashir for doing what we would want someone to do in this
He's just
situation.
a Tiba. He has been so annoying this season.
I know.
He was fine for a long time, and then something happened after it came out that he was an augment, and now he is so incredibly annoying. Like, he's in ops all the time, causing trouble when he's not even supposed to be there. There's the scene where the ship shrinks down, and he's got his face in between the two people who are trying to work, and he just can't stop talking. And then but the worst of it was when he was ready to sacrifice those 30,000 troops because they had to go looking for one person. I don't know what his problem is this season.
All I can say is being in prison changes people. That's
Oh, jeez.
Oh,
Oh, my God. Wow.
I still think he's a changeling. Just a very good one.
Well, he probably is. He has been a number of times. Oh, my gosh. Now we go into the fake holo recording of Weyoun, Damar, and a nameless legate discussing plans to invade Romulus. Sisko and Garrick are watching, and they agree that it seems more realistic now that they've increased the petty bickering and mutual loathing. Seems right.
Yeah, it did seem very realistic.
Did you notice how Garrick got the forger to get in some digs at Gul Dukat?
Yes. Yes, we did. We did get some insults on Gul Dukat. It was very funny.
Oh.
Garrick and Sisko seem happy with the recording, and they tell the blue guy to record the program onto the data rod. Sisko then quietly informs Garrick that Senator Vreenak is on the way. The blue guy hands over the rod, and he tries to leave, but Sisko slams him against the wall, saying he's not leaving until the program is accepted by their client. If it passes inspection, he can leave, but if there is even the slightest flaw, he's going back to the Klingons. Garrick sends Tolar back to his quarters, saying he'll be along shortly to say hello. Back to Sisko's log again, where he says the pressure was starting to get to him. But at this point, Starfleet Command had given their approval for the plan, and now it was just up to him to make it work and convince Vreenak of the lie.
I bet on the orders that came through approving this whole thing, nobody can read any of the Admiral's signatures who said it was okay.
That's right. Now Garrick and Sisko are walking and talking. While Sisko is entertaining the Senator in the wardroom, Garrick intends to make a quick search of the Senator's ship to check for any intelligence information. Sisko seems to completely forget who he's talking to here, and he just tells him to not get caught.
Yeah, I'm just going to poke around the Senator's shuttle. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
No problems there.
No big deal.
Yeah.
No red flags.
It's only established that you literally carry bombs on you at all times.
Yes.
You've literally disintegrated people in front of other members of the crew, including fellow Cardassians.
He has. Now we go to the landing bay, and we get a really cool effect shot of some doors opening and an empty platform going up and then coming back down. And then once the doors close, a tiny Romulan ship decloaks on the platform. Inexplicably, an airplane loading bridge moves towards the ship. I have never seen that before.
That's true. The runabouts don't seem to need that.
No.
I believe it was added in season 4 along with the tannoy for the airline announcements and the baggage handling.
That's true.
Yeah.
And the luggage handling. Yep.
I really like the small Romulan shuttle. I don't recall ever seeing these before because it's like a scaled down warbird. It's a beautiful little model.
I agree. It's very cute. Before he makes himself scarce, Garrick warns Sisko that Vreenak thinks he's on the winning side, so he should expect a very acerbic attitude. Sisko says, after spending a week with Garrick, he's developed a very thick skin, which they both smile about.
Acerbic? Is that any different from the way the Romulans behave normally? How would you tell?
No, 100% of the time. Yeah.
I have a question. Like, so just all Romulans are jerks? There are not any that are just, like, cool to hang out with? Everybody's got the jerk level turned all the way up to 11? The whole race?
It seems like the ones who are, well, the senators, I mean, that makes sense that they would be jerks.
Right.
And anyone in the military. But we don't really know a lot of other kinds of Romulans. So maybe not.
Okay, so the people in the general populace from the Next Gen episode Reunification, they seem cool.
Yeah.
They're not senators or military, so maybe that's what it is. But, like, come on. All of you guys.
The first test for being allowed into the Romulan military and maybe Romulan politics is, are you a sociopath?
Well, it's kind of like the xenophobia of the Cardassians. I mean, so many of them have that superior attitude, and it's the same with the Romulans. They have such a superior attitude, and you'd have to have it, I guess, to have the excuses about the things that they do. Requires you to feel that way, to always feel superior. There were some Romulans in the book that was written as the precursor to season 1 of Picard, and there were some Romulans in that book that were not terrible.
Yeah.
So I think they exist. They're just not generally on these ships that we run into.
So the only time they're chilled out and nice is when their entire planet has been destroyed. Got it.
No, this was before their planet was destroyed.
It was imminently about to be destroyed.
Yeah, but it was about to happen. Yeah, absolutely. Sisko welcomes the senator aboard, and Vreenak is immediately unpleasant, labeling Sisko as the man that started the war with the Dominion, which I guess that's not untrue. And by the way, he's also wearing a very different looking outfit on a Romulan. It's kind of sleek, surprisingly, and it doesn't look like tinfoil.
They've given up on the padded shoulders.
Oh yeah, and the shoulder pads are low.
Good work by them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This looks much better.
Is this the end of an era in Romulan fashion?
I hope so.
I think it is. I hope so.
How will you know who's in charge? The bigger the shoulders, the higher the rank.
Well, the Romulans in Picard and in Prodigy, they have great outfits. Way better than what they did in TNG.
And Romulans from the original series era just have like nice tunics.
Oh, gosh, that's right.
So I don't know where the big shoulders came from.
It had to be TNG. I mean, there were a lot of shoulder pads in the 90s.
There were a lot.
Yeah.
Shoulder pads and like mid-arm length sleeves, which is wild. Just crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, the Cardassians still keep the length of the sleeves, but like great look on Vreenak.
Agreed. Vreenak insults everything and everyone and tells Sisko that he thought he'd be taller, as if that's some kind of an insult, especially when Sisko is actually taller than him. He's pretty much a jerk from the drop, and Sisko just doesn't take the bait. He's very calm.
Oh, yeah. I think that's deliberate, though, that the Romulans are aiming to push the buttons here.
Of course it is. Absolutely. And now Vreenak has moved on to even criticizing his cocktail, but Sisko just lets him complain. Vreenak says time isn't on the Federation's side. The Dominion shipyards are at 100%, and the Federations are still being rebuilt. The Jem'Hadar are being bred in legions, and the Federation is experiencing a manpower shortage. He says, most importantly, the Dominion is resolved to win this war at any cost, and the Federation is focusing on peace. He asks Sisko, in my position, which side would you choose? And of course, Sisko says, I'd pick the side that's most likely to leave us in peace after the dust settles. But he does point out that if the Dominion wins, the Romulan Empire will be surrounded by the Dominion. Vreenak is unconvinced, so Sisko quickly moves to Plan A, telling him the Dominion is planning a sneak attack on the Romulan Empire. And we jump to the holodeck where Sisko plays the holo recording. Vreenak is paying very close attention when watching it, and he's also looking very closely at Sisko. At the end, he asks to examine the data rod, although he doesn't say data rod, he says data rod, and Sisko hands it over in its fancy little case. And he keeps the look on his face completely placid and unchanging.
He is stony-faced throughout this whole thing. Now, so when the Federation, in one of the earlier episodes, attacked the shipyards and destroyed all the Cardassian shipyards, they rebuilt them that quickly?
Yeah, the same with the White facility.
Yeah.
How did they get that rebuilt so quickly?
Also, I think I have a solution to their manpower crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Also get women in as well.
Person power.
That'd probably work.
It does raise a question, though. So they're running out of ships. And they're running out of people. Why aren't they recruiting absolutely everyone? If you're in a war for survival, aren't you going to be throwing anybody who can fly a ship? At what point do you start throwing absolutely everything at the Dominion?
It's just not the Federation way, I fear.
I have to check and see if there's been an episode that has happened yet.
Before you spoil something and get kicked off the podcast?
Yes.
I think I know what you're referring to, Atiba.
So has that episode happened yet?
No.
Let's just say that they are, in fact, throwing everything they can at this situation.
Well, back to the log, Sisko says all he could do was wait and see if the forgery worked. But he says he couldn't really focus on his work, so he just ended up pacing and staring out of the window. He says he doesn't usually agonize over decisions already made. Plus, this time, the cost of failure was so high. If Vreenak discovered the data rod was a forgery, it could push the Romulans even farther into the enemy camp. And even worse, it could lead to them joining the war on the Dominion side.
Not good.
Now we see Sisko walking slowly down a hallway, and he enters the wardroom. Vreenak simply holds up the data rod and dramatically says, "It's a fake!
It's a trap!"
Now, this is a meme I have seen a million times on Twitter, and it really is goofy how he delivers that line.
All right. I have thoughts about this particular line reading.
Go.
Yeah.
I love it. And I think I love it because my take is we're getting this line reading through Sisko's eyes. So maybe what the reading is that way because that's the moment when Sisko feels like, oh man. So it's more like a you're in trouble situation.
Interesting. I took it as, I like the scene as well. I like the delivery of that. I took it as he's barely containing his rage. He wants to throw the thing at Sisko. He wants to go nuts. And he's just keeping it under control.
It's really hard for me to evaluate things like this in an unbiased fashion because, like I said, I have seen this meme a million times. And usually the language is changed to something else, like it's a trap or something else. But I've seen it so many times, so it's already sort of funny to me when they show it. And the same happens later in this episode when Sisko is holding his glass and he sort of tips it to the camera. I've seen that so many times in Swear Trek on Twitter where they, they use it for different things. Like they use it for, I don't know if this is Swear Trek or something else, but they use it for Sisko doing movie reviews. And so it's got that sort of just funny element in my mind. I never knew where it came from before. And now to have it sort of backtrack and try to look at it seriously, I mean, it's virtually impossible.
Yeah. Watching it back in the day, I thought this scene was great. And it stuck with me for a long time just because of the way he reacts. I did enjoy it.
Well, it's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is huge.
Yeah. Like, if all the color could go out of Sisko's face,
it would.
That's what would happen.
It definitely would. Back to the log, and Sisko now has his head in his hands. It all blew up in his face. All the lies and compromises, the inner doubts and rationalizations, all for nothing. Vreenak was furious, saying he would expose this vile deception to the entire quadrant, and then he went back to his shuttle and headed home. There wasn't much else to do, so Sisko went back to work, and 2 days later, when he was posting a new casualty report, he says he got the news. Worf enters saying Starfleet intelligence reported that a Romulan shuttlecraft carrying Senator Vreenak had exploded, and the Tal Shiar was investigating, but preliminary reports point to sabotage, and they believe the Dominion is responsible. The Dominion assassinating a senator on a diplomatic mission could change everything. Worf says this actually could bring the Romulans into the war. Sisko immediately leaves and marches straight to Garrick's shop and punches Garrick right in the face. At least he punches his stunt double right in the face.
Oh, yeah.
He's furious, saying, "You killed him." And Garrick replies, "That's right," and he climbs to his feet. It sort of dawns on Sisko now as he realizes this was the plan all along. He says, "You just wanted to get Vreenak to the station so you could plant a bomb." But Garrick claims it wasn't that simple. He did want the rod to work, but he suspected Tolar might not have been up to the task. So Sisko asks if he also killed the blue guy, and Garrick replies, "Think of them both as tragic victims of war," which makes Sisko just punch him again.
That's how Garrick thinks.
Yeah. But Garrick shouts, "You'll see, they did not die in vain. The Romulans will enter the war. They'll find the remnants of the data rod, and after painstaking forensic examination, they'll discover it contains a recording of a high-level Dominion meeting planning the invasion of Romulus." But Sisko shouts, "They'll just also find out that it's a fraud." But Garrick disagrees. The imperfections will appear to be a result of the explosion. He says, "I ask you, with a seemingly legitimate data rod in one hand and a dead senator in the other, what conclusion would you draw?" Sisko finally puts all of the pieces together. They'll assume Vreenak obtained the rod on his trip and the Dominion killed the senator to prevent him returning to Romulus with it. Garrick responds precisely. And the more the Dominion protests its innocence, the more the Romulans will believe they're guilty, because that's exactly what the Romulans would do.
That's such a great take, that the thing that will convince the Romulans the most is the fact that this is exactly what they would do. This is their modus operandi.
Mm-hmm. And then Garrick pushes the knife in a little bit farther, saying, "Isn't that why you came to me? Because I was capable of doing the things you weren't. And if your conscience is bothering you, you should soothe it with the knowledge that you may have saved the entire Alpha Quadrant. And all it cost was the lives of one Romulan senator, one criminal, and the self-respect of one Starfleet officer. I'd call that a bargain." And 4 Romulan guards, by the way.
They were little people.
We didn't mention them. Yeah.
You don't worry about them.
Apparently not. We go back to Sisko and his log. He says, at 0800 hours, the Romulan Empire formally declared war against the Dominion, and they've already struck 15 bases along the Cardassian border. So this is a huge victory for the good guys. This may even be the turning point of the entire war. Sisko says, "I lied, I cheated, I bribed men to cover the crimes of other men. I am an accessory to murder, but the most damning thing of all," and he turns and looks directly into the camera, "I think I can live with it, and if I had to do it all over again, I would." Garrick was right about one thing. A guilty conscience is a small price to pay for the safety of the Alpha Quadrant. And here he sits down and he does that thing where he toasts the camera with his glass saying, so I will learn to live with it. And then he sort of adjusts his seating position and he says, because I can live with it. And then one more time, maybe with a slightly different tone, I can live with it. And finally, he tells the computer to erase the entire personal log and the screen immediately just goes black. The end.
That ending is so spectacular.
Great.
The way his final line is a question. I can live with it.
I can live with it. Yeah, I can live with it.
Man, that was so good. This is why Avery really brings the character to life. What have I done? I've killed people. I've lied. I potentially violated my Starfleet oath.
Now, when you think about what DS9 does that the other Star Trek shows don't do, or the focus of DS9 as opposed to the other shows, it's moral ambiguity and deeper character development.
Yeah.
And I think both of those things are remarkably on display in this episode.
Agreed.
The incredible thing that this episode does is it gives you clear, defined points at which Sisko has the opportunity to pull the plug on this plan and say, no, I'm stopping it here. But at every turn, he keeps opting into the plan, going deeper and deeper into the hole. You know, just seeing that character make that set of decisions to get to that point. A little bit later on, we can contrast that with another captain in a similar situation, and which I'd really like to talk about with you guys. But I think this is kind of the cherry on top of DS9.
Yeah.
I think what's so interesting about what this says about Sisko is he's not finding it all easy, but he's finding that he has to do it, and he's willing to do it. It's almost like he's willing to take the tarnish onto his own conscience because he knows it's the right thing to do. And that isn't necessarily something we see very frequently in Star Trek.
Yeah.
They've kind of found this point with this character from here where it could be so interesting. Like they could have developed an entire series from here about Sisko, and it would have been really interesting and it would have been really different. It probably wouldn't have gotten the big Star Trek audience. It would have maybe taken some time to build. It's the kind of thing they could do now.
Yeah.
You know, Discovery can be quite dark, and they're trying to make that Section 31 show, right? That kind of stuff, I think, is more accepted now. Even all the Picard stuff now is much darker because that's more what the world is looking for now. So this could have springboarded into something different, but I don't think it happened at a time, maybe in the series because it was already season 6 by now, but it also didn't really happen in a time where that's what the world wanted from Star Trek.
Right. Nobody was watching anyway.
I don't know. All these people who make Trek now were watching. That I can tell you.
Right.
I think I can finally say as well, this is the episode that made me so annoyed about For the Uniform. This shows how much Sisko agonizes about these kind of decisions.
Yeah.
And in that episode, it was like, haha, I used biogenic weapons.
Yeah, it was flippant.
Yeah. It's the same as, do you remember Starship Down, which was not very good? And then they did The Ship, which was spectacular. I feel this is taking a concept that was poorly executed earlier and then making a fantastic episode out of it.
I agree that it is almost like that was the training ground for this episode. Yeah. Like, we should explore that more. We could do a whole episode about that.
Right.
Because we didn't really buy in that episode that he would do that without a second thought. And here they gave us all the second thoughts.
And I'm thinking back, maybe part of my view of Sisko is actually influenced specifically by this episode.
Oh, it has to be.
I've always thought Sisko is political and he has the ability to play politics and do the difficult things, which is why he got this role in the first place. And I think this maybe confirms that.
I'm not sure if this isn't the defining moment for your memories of Sisko that you were paying attention to the show. This is completely defining of this character. Well, we sort of jumped into overanalysis, but are we overanalyzing, or do you have other overanalysis?
We're just discussing the episode. We haven't got into an overanalysis.
We're just discussing.
Yeah.
Well,
I actually have a point.
Atiba's been waiting 3 years for this conversation.
I actually have a point to make. I don't know exactly where it fits into the questions that you normally ask, but
go for it.
I recently found out that this episode was originally written to feature Jake having a Watergate style investigation where he discovers that this has happened.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, I think that would have totally ruined, because as a character study of Cisco, I think this is where this episode shines. But just thinking about that, do you like that idea better, or like, what do you think? Like, would that have worked?
I think that would have worked, but it would have been different.
Yeah.
This has more of an emotional impact about Cisco, whereas that would have been more of an emotional impact about Jake. And Jake, he's just a side character. It's not that I don't love Jake, but he's a side character. Cisco is the heart of the show. So it needed to be Cisco.
Yeah, I would agree.
Or at least the focus needed to be on him.
I agree. I just thought that was interesting. I'd never heard that before.
It is interesting.
It's good that they went the other way, because it would have to tear the family, the father-son dynamic apart.
But that's an interesting idea too, right? Because they spend a lot of time building that up and making that be sort of almost too good to be true. And so that would have torn that down, which would have been a bummer, honestly. That would have been a bummer.
I would disagree. I think you could change it differently, of Jake finding all the information and then at the very end confronting his father, and his father being open and saying, yes, I did all these things. It's for a good cause. And Jake basically agreeing and saying, okay, this makes me part of it. I'm not happy about that, but I understand your reasoning. So it could actually end up with, if you like, strengthening the relationship, because Jake understands his father more about what his father is willing to do for the greater good.
That's not how I would have ended it.
Yeah.
I would have ended it with him never telling Cisco that he knew about it, but him going, yep, that was the right thing for him to do.
Also a good way of doing it. Another episode this ties back almost immediately to is the concepts from Inquisition, where at the end, where they're having the debriefing and Bashir goes into his little holier-than-thou rant about if push comes to shove, would we do anything?
Uh-huh.
And this answers the question. When needs must, they will do what is required.
So, here's a question.
Go.
Would Picard be capable of making this decision?
No, you'd all be dead if Picard was running things.
I tend to agree. I don't think Picard would be willing to put the morals of the Federation aside in order to get this done.
Michael Burnham would, though.
Michael Burnham would.
Kirk would.
And I'm not taking the bait.
I wasn't intended as bait. If a deal were here, it would be bait. But no, I do think Michael would do it. I don't think Picard would do the same thing. No.
No, I think the scenario by which it would happen would have to be totally different. Like, there would actually have to be some proof that Data and Geordi somehow are able to unearth, and then it's able to happen.
I do think he would find a way, though, to maybe sacrifice himself for something like this.
That does seem more in the... Yes.
But I don't think he'd be a party to murder, basically.
Right. Yeah.
Now, interestingly, the captain that I wanted to compare and contrast with was Janeway.
She'd do it.
Oh, she wouldn't think twice.
Would she, though? Because...
Oh, absolutely. Janeway would be in the hallway with Garrick saying, when you're on the ship, see if you can put a bomb on there. I think that might be worthwhile.
Okay. So the whole reason they're stuck in Delta in the first place is because Janeway makes a decision to preserve the morals of the Federation and her own personal morals?
Well, you didn't ask pre-Voyager or post.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm asking well, I just wanted to point out in Caretaker, she's presented with a very similar choice, and she chooses morality over getting everybody home.
Janeway changes through that season, yes.
Later on in the series, she's doing whatever has to happen.
I think later. She's changing timelines.
Taking out Borg cubes with one shot. She's
kicking ass.
Should we do some over-analysis?
Oh, you have more? Go.
Okay.
Go whatever you got.
First one. Why did Garrick pick Tolar? Was he actually really good, or was he just disposable?
Probably, I think he knew where he was. He knew he could get him and control pretty much his every move. And he knew he was disposable. So is he the best? Probably not.
I have some headcanon.
Okay.
There was clearly something between Garrick and the blue guy. I think Garrick's plan all along was to utilize him in this way so that he'd have an opportunity to get rid of him. I think his plan was about killing Tolar.
Wow. You could see the threads of Garrick's plots, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
believe that Garrick wanted to kill Tolar, that was the whole plan. But if he could kill him, that's just gravy.
I don't mean that was I don't mean that was the whole plan, but I think that was part of it. Like, he knew he could create this recording, and he also had the opportunity to get rid of him, which he thought he needed to do for some reason that we'll probably never know.
I also love that we kind of get this view into the mind of Garrick and the 3D chess that he's playing.
Oh, yeah.
On so many levels with so many different parties. Like,
it's a great moment for Garrick.
It's a great Garrick episode, too.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
That leads on to, was this Garrick's plan from the start? Everything else has been a ruse. His contacts on Cardassia, they were already all dead. Making the recording that, he hoped it would pass. None of that was true. Garrick's first plan that he basically roped Sisko into, he was going to bring the senator, kill him, have a data rod that would have enough information that the Tal Shiar would come to the conclusions they did. He played Sisko as much as anything.
I think that's accurate. I think it's probably this was the plan all along. He just had to keep it palatable for Sisko.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't characterize it as him playing Sisko, but it's a thing I talk about at work sometimes, where you feel like you're manipulating people because you spend a lot of time trying to talk them into stuff.
Yeah.
This is what managers do. And to me, it could have been that. His way of manipulation or just talking Sisko into it was to say, like, oh yeah, I tried that plan, that didn't work. Here's a different plan.
Yeah. Because I was wondering about the contacts on Cardassia. I was wondering whether that was true or it was made up.
He asked his nanny. She said no. So he went to the next plan. His nanny from The Young and the Restless.
And my final point is, how could Sisko be under any illusions about what Garrick is or the way he would behave or the things he would do?
Yeah.
That would be surprising to him. We know Garrick is a stone-cold killer. Garrick will do whatever it takes to achieve his mission, what he thinks is important. When you're working with someone like that, nothing should be surprising. It's the only piece of this episode I find surprising with Sisko, where he got annoyed at Garrick. Although, maybe he got annoyed at Garrick because it was his own conscience.
Maybe. He was really mad at himself.
It wasn't really about feeling betrayed by Garrick.
Yeah.
You knew what Garrick was like.
Exactly. I think Garrick nailed it when he said, this is why you came to me. You knew this is what I was going to do. You knew I was going to push it to where you couldn't push it. So, like...
And Garrick warned him from the beginning. This is going to be very messy and very bloody. It's not like Sisko went to Garrick's shop to have tea and cookies.
Exactly.
So I don't know. Was Sisko mad because in a normal Starfleet plan, they would have discussed it. Everybody would have known what was happening. Yeah. He would have been warned. So was he mad about that? Or was he just mad that he had to get involved in this kind of a plan in order for it to work?
I think it's that. I think it's more like, you made me into a murderer now. Like, there were certain lines that I was willing to cross, but you crossed this one for me.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Even though I knew, by me going to you, I kind of knew that you were going to cross that line, but you crossed it, and so now I'm upset.
Yeah. If he was going to cross a line, he wanted to do it himself.
Right.
That's an interesting take, yeah.
Yeah, because my note in my overanalysis is, was Sisko really outraged when he punched him and was all upset? Or was that really almost just for show? Like, if he was willing to do whatever it took, and he said he was willing to do whatever it took, then why are you questioning it when whatever it took was not the moral high ground?
Although, really, he should be congratulating himself. He really has potentially saved the Federation by these actions.
Yep.
I have a question.
Go.
Is not Section 31 a thing? Like, where are they?
Why weren't they trying to make this happen? Good point. Well, because we just thought of it a few weeks ago.
Right. We just, yeah.
Yeah, because it wasn't a thing.
They're busy going to the mirror universe, picking out some leather suits, and bringing them back.
That's right. That's a good point, though. That is what Section 31 should be doing.
My question here is, which admirals approved this order?
Didn't we get rid of all the evil admirals in Homefront? We got them all out of there.
Yeah, Admiral Falcon Crest, he's a goner. We had Admiral Stuffed Shirt is the one who's been with Sisko during all the battles.
Now the only admiral we got left is Ross.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's Ross. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they're all good. Like, he's great. So,
Well, I suppose he could call his dad and say, okay, give me the name of some of those questionable admirals.
Stop
you know.
do not.
Oh, geez,
here
are we back
go.
to
We're
that
back
again?
To Star Trek. I just watched that again.
Atiba, it only comes up when you're on for some reason.
For some reason, I'm on during episodes where Sisko's dad is involved.
Where Grandpa Joe is around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's why.
It was Cartwright, as he used to be known.
All right.
It wasn't just Cartwright alone. It was Cartwright and the Romulan ambassador
Right.
and the Klingon ambassador, okay?
And that, I think, wraps up my overanalysis.
All right.
Over to you or Atiba, whoever has any more.
I do not.
I don't believe Garrick would really have told Sisko of his intent to search the Romulan ship. They did that only so Sisko would know what happened later. I think he would have realistically just done that quietly.
Yeah.
And not given him a warning.
That's probably true.
Yeah, I would see Garrick as one of those ask for forgiveness, don't ask for permission type of people.
And then he doesn't even really ask for forgiveness, but yes. Well, if we go to women in the future, the only thing that really happened was that Quark finally did something to protect a woman in his bar. And of course, he got stabbed for it, so he probably won't do that again. But that was quite a shocker.
Are we sure this isn't Mirror Universe Quark?
That's true. The Mirror Quark was actually a pretty nice guy.
Section 31 swapped him.
It's so funny to look back on how Quark has changed since season 1 and, where he was then and where he is now. I can see there were so many people who told me how much they loved Quark when I started the show. And I'm just like, I don't know why. I don't get it. But I get it. By the end, he's starting to have some redeeming traits that he didn't have in the beginning. The jury's out on Bashir. I don't know what in the heck is going on with that guy.
Well, if you don't like him by now, it's probably not going to happen. So.
I liked him for a while. And then this season, what is with him this season? He's just so awful again.
This is why they ban augments from Starfleet.
This is it.
They're annoying. All right. So let's go to rating. Thumbs up, thumbs down, or neutral. What is your rating? I'll let Atiba go first this time.
Thumbs way up.
All the thumbs. James.
Absolute thumbs up. So good. Love this episode.
Well, I'm going to give it a thumbs down. I'm just kidding.
Oh.
I just wanted to give my Facebook nemesis, his blood pressure just went through the roof when I said that. Just kidding. Obviously, thumbs up. This is a very good episode. It's not the same for me that it is for you because you got to see it cold.
Yeah.
I had too much buildup. I had too many people telling me this is the greatest episode ever. And anytime somebody tells you that, it screws with your expectations of things. And it's not that my expectations were any different than what happened, but it just messes with your mind. Yeah. I thought it was a great episode. I don't think it's my favorite of the DS9 show, but absolutely thumbs up. Great episode.
Awesome.
All right, that wraps up Season 6, Episode 19. Come back next week for Episode 20. In the meantime, if you'd like to send us your own overanalysis of this or any episode, or if you want to say something nice, you can email us at ReBingeIT@gmail.com or tweet us at ReBingeIT. We're also on Instagram and YouTube at ReBingeIT. You can check us out on TalkThroughMedia.com, where you can leave feedback for individual episodes. And Atiba, let us know about your podcast and websites and all the things.
So you can check out my art at Atiba K on Instagram, or you go to my website, atibaroyster.com. Also, I have a podcast with my brother where we talk about other pop cultural things and are not nearly as restrained as we are, not nearly as orderly as we are on this podcast.
We have a process.
You can check that out at Teebs and Kid Versus on Facebook and Instagram.
And I will link to all the things in the show notes.
Thanks for joining us on the Rebinge Deep Space Nine podcast.
That's it for me.
That's it from me.
And that's it for me.